and it is quite timely that we are back again with ECMO in COVID. Uh, COVID is again raging. The second wave is hitting us hard. We- Most of our hospital beds and everywhere else is ICU beds are almost full, and COVID ECMOs are again going up. So today we will be discussing a little about the VA ECMO in COVID-19. It's quite rare because mostly we have been used to listen, or we know that COVID affects the lungs primarily, and most of these patients, they will be needing veno-venous ECMO for respiratory support. But where do we actually need a cardiovascular support too in these patients? And what are the problems that we face? Will be we will be discussing in the next few minutes. So, though it is primarily and affects the lungs, frequently extrapulmonary manifestations are also seen in COVID-19 patients. And in patients with underlying cardiovascular disease, there is increased risk of severe COVID infection and increased risk of death. Heart is affected by various mechanisms, can be because of the oxidative stress or due to hypoxia. There is inhibition of the RAS system that will be coming later. There is a severe cytokine storm. There is a severe inflammatory mechanism which affects the myocardium, as well as there is microvascular and endothelial damage. They all affect the heart and lead to either fulminant myocarditis or acute coronary injuries. It can be all this systemic inflammation cause acute kidney injury, myocarditis, acute coronary syndrome incidences go up in the COVID-19 patients. Many patients, they present not with respiratory symptoms, but with chest pain and MI. Their tropes are higher. They present with arrhythmias, as well as we very frequently know that they are prone to thromboembolic manifestations. The other important thing is that COVID-19 affects the endothelium also. So endothelium all over our body gets affected. There is dysfunctional endothelium leading to micro and macrovascular dysfunction. So all these lead to there is increased cardiovascular as well as other complications. Another thing is that COVID, this 19, the virus, the coronavirus, that attaches to the ACE2 receptors, which are found in our many of our tissues, mainly the lungs, endothelium, etc. So ACE2, they come within the cell. They are taken within the cell through the ACE2 inhibitors, and there is a down regulation of these ACE2 receptors. What is the action of the ACE2 receptor is that it converts the angiotensin 2 to angiotensin 1 to 7. So angiotensin 1 to 7 is protective, but angiotensin 2 is harmful to our systems. So there is increased cardiovascular diseases in these patients and increased lung injury. We find that almost 24% of the patients who are hospitalized with COVID-19, they have heart failure, and clinically shock can be identified in at least 9 to 17% of the patients. In patients who have history of hypertension, diabetes, etc., they are at increased risk of cardiovascular injury. And patients with cardiac injury, there is increased incidence of mechanical ventilation. There are more chances of mechanical ventilation, the severe ARDS, acute kidney injury, and other coagulation disorders. They increase the mortality of these patients. So what happens actually? Because of the severe ARDS, it's also associated with a increased afterload of the right ventricle. The right ventricle fails, and it is a common problem that patients who are being ventilated with a high PEEP, high airway pressure, the lungs are very stiff. There, the uh, right ventricle fails to deliver adequate output, and these patients, they will end up in cardiogenic shock due to the ARDS, leading to the right ventricular afterload increase. And in these patients who present with respiratory failure, and if this is not assessed early and not treated early, they progress to increased circulatory failure and then leading to multi-organ dysfunction. So respiratory failure presentation, if not treated, or if it is progressively increasing in spite of all your efforts, then it leads to circulatory failure and multi-organ dysfunction. So what are the indication of VA ECMO? It's same as in any other patient in where the cardiac output is low in spite of you are giving adequate doses of vasopressors, inotropes, etc. So that is the indication, but you have to remember that it has to be initiated prior to any development of irreversible multi-organ failure, because once the multi-organ failure becomes irreversible, institution of ECMO after that will be detrimental, will not be helpful. The common indications are severe heart failure with severe myocarditis, RV dysfunction because of pulmonary emboli. There can be persistent malignant arrhythmias in these patients. Patients may present with MI, and there are situations where the patient has been put on VV ECMO, and then the patient develops cardiopulmonary dysfunction, and we have to then convert into a VA ECMO or VAV ECMO that will come later. So you have put the patient on ventilator, patient not improving, put him on the veno-venous ECMO, still the patient is having cardiovascular collapse, go for VA ECMO. So you have to decide whether you are going for a VV ECMO or a VA ECMO. Both has its own benefits. VV ECMO will support only the lungs, but in patients with RV dysfunction, if you increase the oxygenation, reduce the carbon dioxide, it helps to reduce the load on the right side of the heart. Also, the airway pressures will come down because of the reduced ventilatory support. VA ECMO will be supporting both the lungs and the heart. But many a times we will be needing the help of VAV ECMO, that is combination of both VV and VA ECMO, where we are giving the oxygenated blood both through the arterial route as well as to the venous route. Because why we are giving it? Because the lungs are stiff, it is not getting oxygen. The blood which is passing through the lungs to the left ventricle is deoxygenated, and if that heart is ejecting the blood, that deoxygenated blood will be going to the proximal branches, that is the coronaries as well as the cerebral circulation. So if we can give a little bit of oxygenated blood back through the right side of the heart, then the left ventricle will be getting the oxygenated blood, and the proximal branches will be getting the oxygenated blood. So the myocardium will be getting the oxygenated blood. So that is the benefit with the VAV ECMO, because that will give a better oxygenation to the patient as well as it improves in the cardiac function. This is a simple picture of the VAV ECMO, where in a VA ECMO, we are taking blood from the vein, giving back to the arterial route. In VA ECMO, there is one branch where it goes to the through the jugular back into the right side of the heart. Part of the return is to the right side of the heart. So I'll come to a few cases. A 57-year-old male patient with a bilateral whiteout chest on X-ray. He was initiated on VV ECMO within 24 hours of ventilation. Was not improving. On sixth day, we found that he is having unstable hemodynamics in spite of higher supports. So this is the situation. You can see that even on 24 inspired pressure, only 50 ml of air is going within his lungs. So the compliance is too low. It's almost 2. So you can see that, is it visible? The left ventricle is contracting well. The right ventricle is dilated, grossly dilated. So in this patient, what we did was initially we put in 2 drainage cannulas to drain out the right ventricle, but that did not help. So we again put in a arterial cannula into the axillary, so that we converted into a VAV ECMO. You can see that the venous drainage is from the 2 femoral veins. The return is going, one is going to the arterial return to the axillary artery, and another is going to the jugular. So this is a video of the complete circuit. This is the deoxygenated blood which is getting drained. Going to the oxygenator, and then the return of the oxygenated blood is made. There is a Y. One is going to the arterial axillary artery, as well as the other is going to the jugular. So how much blood is going through each can be assessed by putting in a this flow meter. In the ultrasonic flow meter, we can assess. The cardiac function improved. After 5 days on VAV ECMO, we converted the patient back to VV ECMO because the lungs were still stiff. The heart had improved. But on the 28th day of ECMO, we lost the patient because of systemic infections as well as non-improvement of the lungs. One more patient. This is an aortic aneurysm where we had to convert from VA to VAV conversion. Previous one was VV to VA. This is a 63-year-old male patient who presented with a impending rupture of this aneurysm. Just before the day of surgery, we found that his RT-PCR was positive. But since it was a life-saving surgery, we went ahead with it. This was the CT picture of this patient prior to the surgery. First stage, we did a deep branching. Then we put in a TIVAR. It is a covered stent to cover all the branches. And this is you can see the debranching thing. And we continued the patient on VA ECMO. But during this TIVAR process, there was a lot of blood loss, and we ended up with a bad lung. For that, we converted into a VAV ECMO for this patient. After 2 days of this TIVAR, we took the patient back to the OT, and we decompressed the aneurysm. the VAV ECMO was continued for 17 days. The lungs did not improve, as well as the patients had multi-organ dysfunction. So after 17 days, we couldn't continue the support any further. Two more patients where we had futile attempts to VAV ECMO, and these are cases for which I am highlighting because where we should not go for the VAV ECMO in these patients. Because this was a 67-year-old male patient who was having COVID-19, was on ventilation. Initially, the relatives withheld consent for ECMO, but on 6th day of ventilation, the patient was severely hypoxic and the relatives gave a consent. But the patient already started to have unstable hemodynamics by that time. We initiated a VAV ECMO. Urine output dropped. Interleukins were sky high, more than 5,000. We did a cytosol dialysis, but the patient died after 48 hours. And another patient was 47-year-old male patient admitted in an outside hospital. And within 24 hours of ventilation, he was severely hypoxic and the call was given for ECMO. When we reached, we found that the pH was 6.85. It was a mixed respiratory and metabolic acidosis. And we retrieved the patient on VV ECMO, initially responded, but 6 hours post ECMO, the patient had a crashing hemodynamics with RV dysfunction, converted to VAV, but the patient did not survive. So these are the patients where we should avoid VAV conversion to VAV because that is not going to help. What is there in the ELSO registry? ELSO registry in the last 90 days, beyond 90 days back, there were 4,739 patients of confirmed COVID, and only 4% of them were on cardiac ECMO, that is VA ECMO, and 1% is on ECPR. What's there in the European studies? In the initial European studies, we find that VA ECMO was almost 9%, that is 1 year back on 21st March. There was only 9% VA ECMO, but in the end of the first phase, we can see that it had come down to 5% only. What happened in the second wave till March this year is again 4%. And the third wave that has started there, it's again 4% only. What it has been also found that what mode we are starting, VA or VV, if the patient is on VA, there is increased risk of death. The odds ratio for death is more if the patient is on VA or VAV rather than VV. Survival is again low because this was a study where around 135 patients were seen, and of them 122 were VV, 10 were VA. Survival of the 122, 60 patients survived. On only of the 10 VA patients, only 2 patients survived. So survival is less in VA, mainly because it's a multifactorial disease, multi-system disease affecting many of the systems of the body where the need for support is higher. They are more sicker. One important thing is that in this study, we found that there were second and third runs of ECMO. So many times we fail to recognize this, but we should not give up on the patients when they are going down. We can go for second or third runs of ECMO if needed to save the patient. There is one small data. This is not about VV or VA, but it has been found that if the initiation pH is less than 7.23, the mortality rate is high. If the age is less than 60 years, mortality is 68%, whereas compared to more than 7.23 pH, mortality is approximately 40%. In more than 60 years, mortality, if the pH is low, goes above 90%. So if the patient's pH is low and if the patient is having a metabolic component to that, which is increasing if the patient is on multiple supports, then before going into a cardiovascular support, we should think twice. So coming to the take home message, uh, COVID-19, though it's a multi-system disease, use of VA ECMO has to be individualized in each patient. The number of VA ECMOs is less, and its use has to be categorized in each patient. It does not help in severe cytokine storm or in patients with severe multi-organ dysfunction. If the patient is having a severe cytokine storm, in spite of going on VA ECMO, we will not be able to save the patient many of the times. It may be useful in patients with cardiomyopathy with LV dysfunction, and it is definitely useful in patients who are having pulmonary embolism with associated RV dysfunction. Though the outcome is worse than VV, still, if you feel that the patient can survive, you can go ahead with VA ECMO or VAV ECMO, as it supports both the lungs and the heart. And in patients with higher age with cardiovascular disease, then the chances of survival are less.